Hey out there, it's Jen for Tested, here today with a little project video, a little DIY. This is a process that I went over in a previous video, but we're going to kind of zoom in on a piece of this today. So I developed a way to do reverse gilding for sort of sign painting, but within that process is a way that I discovered to do gold leaf the way that it's done on sign windows, which is behind the glass. And I'm doing it with acrylic. I'm doing all of this with like really low budget, very accessible materials. And we went over like the whole process of how I created these signs in that video. So definitely go check that out. But today we're going to hone in on the gold leafing process specifically because there's a lot of techniques to absorb. There's a lot to dig into. So this is an example of one of the signs that I made, and you can apply these techniques to a sign like this, or you could make something completely different. It doesn't have to be text. It could be an object that you want to gold leaf. This specific process I have kind of distilled from a bunch of different videos of people that are professional sign makers. So this particular process, reverse gilding, is usually used like traditionally for sign windows, and they would apply gold leaf to the back of a piece of glass with various layers of paint, sometimes acid etching, to make these really beautiful, elaborate things. You can gold leaf, a three-dimensional object, certainly, but this particular process is very, it's very specialized. There's a whole world of people that do this. So without further ado, let's get into it. What I have done is to prep some pieces of material. So I'm just using clear acrylic. You can see I've got a word that is mirrored, and I have a sort of mask on top of it. I went over kind of all the specifics of this in the sign painting video, but we want to focus on the gold leafing. So I prepared the surface with a layer of black paint. And the reason for that, I've noticed, is with this particular type of gold leafing, you can have some of the gold peel off on the edges. And with that, you may lose some of the coverage on the back of your letters. So what I found is if I put paint, like a border around the gold leaf, it will still peel back, but you won't be able to see it because it'll be behind that nice border. Here is the setup that I've got. Like I said, these are all pretty inexpensive, available materials. What I did was to watch a whole bunch of sign painting videos of different professionals doing their work. It's a very old technique. It's probably been around for a couple hundred years. And the professionals, I mean, when you watch these videos, it's mesmerizing. It's like magical to watch what they can do. So if you want to go down that whole rabbit hole and really see how the pros do this, you should look at that. But what I did was to try to find substitutes or lower barrier of entry versions of a lot of their tools so that we can do it here on acrylic in a very limited setting. So let's just go over what I've got out here on the table. I'm starting off with a piece of acrylic. You can do this. You can obviously gold leaf an object, but I'm going to go through reverse gilding, which is gilding on the back. With that, the way that we apply the gold leaf is using various different kinds of size. So in a professional setting, this would typically be done on glass, and they would use a gelatin-based animal fat size. So it's mixed with water into a solution, and it dries super clear. You would brush that onto the surface and apply your gold leaf. Now with the glass, you have the ability to sort of scrape off around it. They'll use different kind of knives and brushes. The problem with acrylic is that it scratches really easily. So you could do that with glass, but because the acrylic can get lots of scratch marks, we're not going to scrape or do any kind of abrasion on the back of it. The leaf itself is a very, very delicate sort of tissue. If you can see that. Ooh, this gives you an idea of just how thin it is and how temperamental. So if you blow on it, or if you even walk past it, if I move my hand too quickly, it will sort of flutter and you'll start to get these little wrinkles. It's it's tricky to get a hang of. This is imitation gold leaf, so this is not made of actual gold, but it's pretty convincing, and so far the effects look great to me. You can get real gold leaf, 24 karat, 18 karat, whatever. Those will have all the properties of gold, so they won't rust, they won't tarnish or fade, but this imitation stuff obviously is way, way less expensive, so this is what I'm working with. I will use a sealer on this because it can tarnish over time. It's made of other alloys, but this is the primary material. There is another version which is not loose. This is loose leaf. This is patent leaf. You can also find what's called transfer leaf, and that would be sort of adhered to the tissue. It's a lot less fluttery because it's already stuck to the tissue. I have not found a ton of great options for that in the imitation. It's widely available in the real gold, but not a ton of great options. So we're going to work with the loose leaf, and I'll get into more of the tools of how we're going to apply this in just a moment. But we have a couple of samples here that we can start preparing. So we'll do that because they need some time to dry. So you'll have your material. I went through a whole process on how to prepare this and sort of score the masking and all of your layers in order of operations, but we're here at the step where you actually apply the gold leaf. So I have a black border around all of my letters because that will sort of protect the edges of the gold leaf from peeling off when I remove the final mask. And all of the areas where I've removed the masking material, you can see it's kind of brown. That is where I'm going to apply the gold leaf. Now I tried a couple different options for size. I'm not using the gelatin size. These are all water-based, and I found the one that I like best, two that I like best. There's this one called Stick. This is made by Stuart Semple. I believe this is discontinued. You may still be able to find some, but it's $15 for this little bottle, and as you can see, it's not that much. This is a 30 milliliter bottle. The other one that I like is this one called Wunda Size. This is a water-based gold leaf adhesive. It's specifically formulated for this type of work, and this comes in a pint. So this was the same price as this little jar. We'll experiment with both of them today. Of the other types of adhesive that I used, there's many other brands you can try. These all take a lot longer to dry. And basically when you apply it, the gold leaf adhesive needs time to get tacky. And for me, I want to do it quickly. These both dry in about 15 minutes. So I will take a little bit of the Wunda Size and a little bit of the Stick, and we'll try both, and we'll see how the effects compare. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit. All right, so we've got, and you can see the consistency is a little bit different. This Stick stuff has a very very liquid consistency. I would say this is probably thinner than milk. And the Wunda Size is maybe just a tiny bit thicker. So we will apply them. And I'm not using any special kind of brush here. It's just a craft brush. I'm trying to get a really thin, really even coat, as little brush strokes as I can manage. And the one thing I want to be really careful of is pooling. So if you see areas like that, I want to brush through that because that will end up showing up in your final gold leaf. Now, when this is done with the gelatin size, the way that I've seen it done, it's a process called water gilding, and the gilder will kind of spray the surface of the glass with water, and then they will apply the gilding, or the size rather, to this wet, sort of slippery surface. But again, we're not using the gelatin size, we're just using this water-based adhesive. So the Wunda Size has a little bit of a blue tint to it, And I suppose if you were using this to gild something that is not clear, it would help in seeing where you had actually applied the size. So I'm using the brush, like I said, isn't anything special in particular. I just found a brush that was soft. This is a synthetic bristle brush, so it's not like coarse. It's very fine, soft bristles, and you can see they're leaving some brush strokes, but ideally most of those will sort of level themselves out. All right, so that side we'll do with the one to size, and this side we'll do with the stick. And the reason I picked these two, like I said, is partly because of their results, but primarily because of the drying time. So the other types, the finished effect was fine. I didn't see any major difference in quality. The main issue that I had was they take up to an hour before they are the right level of tackiness for the gold leaf, and I don't want to wait that long. So I'm taking some of the stick from this one letter and applying it to the adjacent letter because there was just a lot on the brush. All right, so don't have any streaks, we don't have any pooling. Okay, so we're gonna let that set up for about 15 minutes. And you can usually tell when it's ready because you'll see the strokes sort of disappear. The other thing I want to do, just as kind of a control for this experiment, is just to do a plain section with no detail, no masking. We're just going to apply gold leaf to these and see if we can demonstrate a couple different techniques. So I'm definitely getting some more, like it's easier to see on this wider panel. I'm definitely getting some more brush strokes, some more pooling along the edges of the brush on the one to size side. But we'll see how much that evens out as it dries. And I'm just using water to clean the brush right now since these are water-based. The one to size does say that you can use some lacquer thinner in the water, a little bit of lacquer thinner to clean it as well. So if you want to take care of your brushes, you don't want to leave the adhesive to settle in there. It's interesting. So this material, this acrylic, seems to be almost resisting the stick. That's very interesting. So we'll see how well this one works. And the idea with the reverse gilding really is you want your adhesive layer to dry completely clear so that you can get the full sort of luster and shine of the gold leaf through it. If you were gilding an object that's not see-through, you have, oops, we're stuck to the table here. You don't have to worry about that as much because the gold leaf will be on top. But in this case, we're applying the leaf to the reverse. So whatever film or adhesive is between the gold leaf and the acrylic is going to affect the final result. All right, so I'm looking at my size and everything appears to have set. I can tell because it's sticking to the table. No, I can tell because it is basically clear, and all of the sort of brush strokes and any of the pooling of the adhesive is pretty much invisible, and it's just a little bit tacky to the touch. So it's ready for me to apply the leaf. If you apply the leaf when it's too wet, it will totally mess up your finish. So I have a couple different tools out here. I've got a piece of loose leaf. I've got a funny looking little brush. This is called a gilder's tip. This is a very, very cheap one. The handle is cardboard. These usually run upwards of $60. I was looking for the pro versions. I also grabbed a gilder's knife, which is not actually a gilder's knife. This is a fettling knife, but those are also super expensive. This is just a very dull, you can see I can run my finger along the blade, a very dull, flat, long blade knife. And then lastly, I set up kind of a really hack version of a gilder's cushion. The pros use a board that has a soft layer of material covered by a thick layer of suede. And the reason for that is they will take their leaf of gold, and oftentimes these will come in a booklet. And if you think about how expensive it would be to be doing this with real 24 karat gold leaf, you don't want to waste any of these little pieces. So they will cut the leaf to fit the size of the area that they need to apply the leaf to. And so the purpose of the knife and the gilder's cushion is to slice the leaf into more appropriate size pieces. So I'm going to attempt to do that. I don't have exactly the right tools. As I said, all of that stuff would be like a couple $100s to invest in properly, but we'll see if I can pull this off. So I'm just going to press this gently onto the leaf and then sort of drag through. And the idea is you don't want to destroy the leaf. We sort of got it. We sort of got, yeah. Okay, so it kind of works. This is a very, very hack setup, but this was all like under 30 bucks for all of these materials. So I've got a little piece of leaf here. Now if I want to cut this again, we'll go this way, maybe like the length of a letter. So again, I'm just dragging a dull knife through it. And there we go. All right, now for the tricky part. The idea with the gilder's tip is that you use these bristles to pick up the leaf of gold. Because if you try to pick it up with your fingers or another tool, it's going to get all wrinkly and crinkly and mess up your finish. So the way that this is done, the way that I've seen this done, is the gilders would take the gilder's tip and brush it on their face, on their hair. And the idea is that you want to pick up just a little bit of grease, just a little bit of static. No. Okay. The other trick that I've seen people do is to use a little bit of Vaseline. So I have a tiny little swipe of Vaseline in this cup, and I'm going to just very carefully apply this to the bristles. Now I don't want too much because then the gold leaf will not come off. So just a light dusting. And let's see if I can grab one of these pieces. There we go. All right, so there it is. There's my little leaf of gold ready to apply. All right, here we go, going in. And the way that I've seen this done best is a sort of like a hinge motion. So you just kind of like tap the brush down and then hopefully it will stick. There we go. Nice. And then there's a variety of different techniques for this. Most of the gilders that I watched were using a organic cotton ball, so like really, really soft, loose cotton to sort of rub along the back of this. You could also use like a makeup brush. Let's pick up this little piece right here. Oop, we got two. Just want one of you. Come on. There we go. I'm just using a fan brush here to get the leaf to stick down. And we'll grab a couple little pieces. Come on. To fill in these little gaps. I mean, these are kind of large gaps, but small gaps are called holidays. I don't know why they're called holidays, but they are. And you can use just like little sections of leaf to fill those in. Like I said, this is not actually a gilder's knife. This is like a very inexpensive, dull, straight knife that I was able to find. But a real gilder's knife would be just the right level of blunt and sharp so that you could cut through the leaf without dragging and disturbing the flatness of it. I think there's some little corner pieces there. And I'm not terribly worried about, I mean, we want to have as few wrinkles as possible. That's the whole idea behind using this really delicate process. But we are going to burnish it all down afterwards. So it's not the end of the world. I've seen the pros do this very effectively, and I'm totally going to botch it. But they will sort of drag the leaf off of the paper by folding it over the knife, and you just sort of give it a little blow, and then you can flatten the leaf out by blowing gently on top of it. So we'll cut a couple more pieces here. Oh, my technique is getting a little better, just a little bit. Yes, there we go. And we'll go for this way. Great. The reason that some of the gilders I watched were not using Vaseline is because it can tend to muck up your gilder's tip, which will affect your application. And we just need one more little So you can see that working with this stuff, it's like this magical substance it's like tissue thin, it's so fragile, but it's so beautiful. And when you finally get the hang of it, it's not that difficult to work with. Just gonna fill in if there's maybe a little holiday there. I think there was, because I'm getting some adhesion. So I'm just using the pad of my finger to burnish down the gold. This is not at all how it would be done professionally. They would use a cotton ball or some type of special sort of burnishing tool. I think that a soft makeup sponge would work great for this too. I think we've covered it mostly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of take a peek here. I've got masking material on the front, and I'm going to remove it so I can make sure that I don't have any gaps. The first reveal, then I'll remove the backing. All right. So from back here, it looks pretty good. I can see a little bit of wrinkling, like especially here in the K and the A. So I might want to burnish those down some more and see if I can get some of those wrinkles out. Let's see, that looks a little better. So I'm definitely getting a little bit of wrinkling, a little bit of scratching. So I'm losing a little bit of the luster the more that I rub on it. But I think this is all really in your application technique. So the better you get with applying the gold leaf nice and flat without that kind of puckering, the better finish you'll get. I'm going to do another application on this other piece because I want to show some other techniques that I picked up while watching the pros do this. Come on. Oof. I thought picking it up would make it better. It did not. So yeah, if you watch the pros do it, their technique is impeccable. I am very much a newbie at this, but the point is that it's a relatively accessible process. And the more you practice, the better you will get at it. The reason that I wanted to do this one, and I'll show you in a second what I'm going to do, is there are some cool ways that you can burnish this to get some different effects. So see if I can get this one without totally wrinkling the crap out of it. No, 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 stay. Maybe, nope. There's a lot of finesse in the technique of getting it right. Oh, that's where it's landed. That's where it's gonna be. So as you can see, my technique needs improvement, but you get the idea. All right, I'm just gonna quickly stick some stickies on here. All right, at this point I've pretty much just given up and I'm finger painting, but you get the idea. It's gonna be mostly leaves so that we can try this, this little technique. So when you look at the front of this, you can see it's all like wrinkly. You can see lots of sort of puckering of the gold leaf. I can burnish this down the ways that I have, but I've seen some people using a technique to get these kind of, it almost looks like brushed metal. I mean, it is brushed metal, but it's a cool looking effect. So I'm gonna try it out. And all I did was I took a little square of velvet. I just cut up a little piece of velvet that I cut out. And I've seen people using cotton balls, but I just have cotton pads. So I'm kind of bundling those up into a little ball and wrap that in the velvet, and then just use a rubber band to sort of tie it off. So it's like a little velvet pouch. And there's definitely some trial and error to be done with this, but basically what I've seen people do is to take this and kind of twist it in a circular motion, and then you'll get this, you can sort of see the rounded, like brushed metal effect on the back. Let's do a little bit more. And I could probably apply a little more pressure. So you can kind of see, are you getting the visual on it? Yeah, so you can kind of see that effect. And that also hides some of my less than perfect leaf application. So that's just another thing you can try. And there's all different sort of patterns. The way that I've seen the pros do it, and when they're using the animal size glue, the finish on the gold, they can get it like mirror finish. I mean, you could read a book in the reflection because it's that clear and that shiny. I'm not getting that effect with my technique and the materials that I'm using, but for my purposes, for, you know, accessible, low budget, I think this is pretty cool. So I'm gonna remove the final masking on here so you can get an idea of what this looks like. Maybe grab my weeding tool. This is super helpful. This is just a weeding pick that I found for, it's used for application of like vinyl graphics and stuff. All right, so we're just gonna peel the backing off here. And we should have a couple little cutouts. Oh, that's not where I meant to scrape. So you can see where the gold leaf peels up a little bit around the edges. I think that is avoidable if you have exact right tackiness of your size and, you know, much better application. But when it's sort of just an artifact of the process that when you peel that masking back, it wants to take some of the gold leaf with it. And so I'm going to use another little tool. Another little tool that I found, these are clay tools, but they have like a little squishy little silicone tip, and I can just use that to push the gold leaf back into the areas it's supposed to be so that it's not sticking out. There it is. There's the finished piece. So, you know, you can see, obviously, I have some work to do on improving the technique, but I wanted to share it with you all because I think the finished effect is really pretty awesome, and it's so easy to do. Like, all of these materials are very inexpensive, very accessible, and after a few tries of practice, I'm getting this as a finished product. We'll put links to all of these different tools and materials that I use down in the description, and definitely let us know if you decide to try this at home, reverse gilding. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.